This is a Quiet Loud Studios production, the podcast network where reflection meets amplification.
Hello, Athlete Mindset community. This is Lisa Bonta Sumii, the host of Athlete Mindset. Before we dive into this episode, I want to invite you to support the mission and purpose of our show. For $10 a month, you can help to make sure these conversations get to as many athletes, teams, coaches, and sport mental health environments as possible. As a subscriber, you will receive exclusive content and updates on current topics in athlete mental health, and you'll be directly contributing to the betterment of mental health for all athletes. Join the cause. Subscribe at sportse.io/athlete and make a difference today. Again, that's sportse.io/athlete. With your support and amplification, we can ensure more voices are heard and more individuals and communities are positively impacted.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Athlete Mindset Podcast. We're doing this amazing 3-part series with the True Athlete Project. I'm super excited to dive into these conversations. And today we're going to be talking to Oz Marginean today from the True Athlete Project and just kind of getting to know her and what her work is about and how come she arrived here at this spot in her career. So welcome, Oz.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, it's awesome. This is awesome. I know I'm in the States in California. You're in Barcelona. So we had to do a little bit of a time difference thingy. So it's 9 a.m. here and 6 p.m. there. And we're making this happen. But Tell me, I want to tell the folks a little bit about you. Oz is a former NCAA D1 athlete and pro basketball player with a master's in science and sports psychology and a master in coaching. She is the head of community at the True Athlete Project, where she leads the membership and programs integrating mindfulness, playful movement, and creativity into sports, which we all need more of in general in this world. So thank you for everything that you do. Let's start with what led you to pursue higher education in sports psychology and coaching? Why those two things after playing for a bit?
Yeah, good question. You went right to it.
Yes, here we go.
That's a big question for me.
Okay.
Because in undergrad, I studied business.
Interesting.
Which a few years after I graduated, I came to realize, why did I study business in my undergrad? The master in sports psychology came because basically I was struggling with my transition out of sports. And I was curious to understand what was going on. I think a lot of people study psychology because of that. They're like, something is going on, or they want to heal, or
for sure.
And then they go into that. So that was kind of my main reason for the sports psychology. And I went right with the idea, okay, I want to do my dissertation on athlete transition out of sports. That was my first kind of goal with that. Yeah.
Nice. And then you also got your master's in coaching.
Yes. So after that was at University of Essex, the master in sports psychology. And after that, I came back to Barcelona. And just long story short, I was still working for the Johan Cruyff Institute at the time. I was in sales and also a program manager. And they wanted to kind of support me to do more of what I like in my job when I came back from playing basketball. Mm-hmm. So we had this master in coaching, part of the institute, because it's a sports business. And the master in coaching is more focused on self-development as a coach and understanding your values, understanding your philosophy. So they gave me the task, okay, you go and do the program, and then we're going to have you manage this program because it's more in your line. You study sports psychology now, and it's more in your line of what you're passionate about and what you want to do.
For sure. So, I love it when an organization can pay for your education and then and then you give value back to the organization. That's pretty cool. I want to go back to athlete transition out of sport. It's a huge topic. It's a huge topic right now. So Tell me a little bit about your process. You said you struggled kind of with that transition. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that felt like, or how you would describe that for yourself?
Sure. So basically, I identify myself as a basketball player for a very long time. I started
Mhm.
at a young age. I played professionally and for national team at a young age, and I was surrounded by basically only basketball players. All my
Yeah.
friends.
Yep.
I started speaking basically only English. So to practice, it became this whole culture part of me.
For sure.
So when I came back from New York, I went to Romania for a little bit. That was when I graduated from St. Francis in 2014. I stayed for another year, but in 2015, I moved to Barcelona. And I was basically a bit lost of what to do. I tried to play basketball again when I moved to Barcelona because that was my community. It was where I felt belonging. So that, okay, I'm going to play even if it doesn't pay or it's not my job.
Mm.
I'm going to play just for the fun of it. But soon I found out that it wasn't the same for me. It was very different from the States, and it was just late practices 3 times a week. So, and then I went to work in the office, and that was for me kind of like the downward spiral, like 9 to 5, kind of disconnected from my body, no basketball players around. And that's when I started to really struggle. Like, what am I doing? What is my passion? What is my purpose? And what am I, what have I done all my life? Like, I'm only good at basketball. And I started to doubt myself of not having the confidence of, well, I don't know how to do anything else. Yeah. So then it came to just exploration, what I like and what are my passions out of basketball. And that came more after I went back to basketball at University of Essex to do the master. That was 3 years after or 4 years after I stopped playing. So you can imagine how out of shape I was when I went
You're
back.
right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. But yeah, so after I finished at Essex, I was quite, okay, it's time to let it go. And I felt, I think, more at peace because I was realizing that, yeah, that year I still didn't play. This is a longer story. I don't know if we want to go into it because the reason of my, how to say, burnout in basketball came also from performance focused. How do I say this? I had a lot of performance anxiety when I was in games. And I
No.
was
Yeah.
playing well in practice, but during games I was not playing well, so I wasn't scoring. And this turned into a burnout and a whole thing of like, I can become pro, which was my dream. But yeah, so I don't know if I
No,
answered
no,
your
no. I
question. I
think
went to a different.
it's amazing. No, it's good because there are so many athletes, and some maybe are listening right now, parents of athletes, coaches of athletes, athletes themselves that have, an athlete identity and don't know who else they are, or like how to identify themselves in other ways. And that, I mean, we won't take time to tell my story today, but like I can deeply relate to it because it happened to me also. And I can say for myself, there's a flailing kind of like half of myself, or only part of myself, trying to find, like you said, your new purpose, your new reason to kind of like, I don't want to be dramatic, to live and to live with passion and to live with a reason. And so it's an important conversation. And I think what you said about you felt disconnected from your body, I think that's really, really, for lack of a better word, like deep and significant. And I think people feel like that, but don't know how to. Is that what I feel? Am I disconnected from my body? Like, I know that for me, and I wanted to check in with you, I didn't know how to, after I left my sport due to injury is different, how to eat properly, how to move my body properly now that I'm not training for competition at a higher level. Like, how do I relate to my body? How do I socialize or build friendships when they were always built in through my team, etc. So it's an important conversation. And so we'll stick there because I want to go into the performance anxiety thing because that's, me and yours, Allie, around stuff. But what you're talking about and how you're sharing it is going to be very powerful for people. And so I don't want you to feel like long story short, or like, I don't want to go into, because like, this is exactly why we're doing this series, so that people can hear that even those of us who are helpers, like you and I, have been through our own journeys, like our own struggles, our own moments, and maybe bigger moments, maybe not a moment, but a season of adversity. And so people can know that like we're human too, and that we've gone through these things and have struggled through. And that's why we have a deep heart around this stuff. So I want you to feel free to like speak your truth and like talk about it, because you've now gone back and like done research on it and writing on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What were your
And I
findings?
also focused, I focused more on women's basketball players that played pro and the ones that played in the NCAA.
Well, of course you would. Of course you would, because that's your experience, right? But it can't, but it can universalize into other athletes, other sports, other genders, other experiences, because the athlete identity process is so important. So I want to hear, and I know everybody out there wants to hear, like, what were your findings from your writing and your research, and like what gems can you share with us about this process? Because I know people want to know and want to help themselves or someone in their lives who's maybe coping with this.
I mean, it's so individual
Yeah.
after all, and depends so much of your background, where you were raised.
True.
Did you have a support system? Did you have a loving family? Did you play pro from a young age? Did you leave school? So there's all these individual factors that come into play. But then, of course, there are these general things that come when it comes to athlete transition. And if you want a more successful transition,
Right.
more happy, I don't know the right word to use, better to start basically while you're playing. That's very important. And I think a lot of athletes do not realize that when we retire, we're like, oh, this is what I should have done. And then we try to help, but you have to start while you're playing. And of course, it's not just you, it's your coach, it's your environment, knowing all these things about, okay, this is mostly what's happening when people finish sport. And this is what we need to do now in order to not suffer, not enter depression, and just basically finish sport with a joyful feeling and not with a sad, not feeling. So I would say some of these things, I think maybe people would be interested in learning more about this. And there's so much interesting research around it. But what stuck to me a lot was, exploration of values. So what's important to me, this, I think there needs to be, a focus more during in the team, that together as a team we come together and there is this, how do you say, conversations around this topic.
Yes.
Then passions. Okay, there is not much time as a college student athlete to really explore your passions. But if there is a bit of support from the coach and from the school to give a bit of time to see, okay, maybe try some music, maybe try some piano, maybe try dance. Have one class a week, one something a week, activity a week that has nothing to do with the sport, just to see how you feel, What else? So many things. Relationships, develop relationships outside of sport, because you're in a bubble after all. And when you finish, you're going to have to learn how to communicate with people from different areas. I think I was lucky with this because I was in New York and I was a bit older than the girls in college in my team. So I just went about my way in New York and I was exploring, things in Manhattan, and I was going out to clubs and to like talking to different people from like, I think in a way it helped me develop my identity outside of basketball, because if you're just in that bubble all day talking only to your teammates, it's not good for sure. Yeah.
Oz, oh my God. And I know you have probably a list of like 5, 6 more, but those are really, really important. You probably saw me like, I'm glad no one else can see me, but I'm over here like reacting to everything that you're saying. I'm like shaking my head, moving around. But like, I want to go down each one a little bit, because start while you're playing. What? Like, you have to start to develop your identities while you're still in your sport identity. And I have found, and it's interesting, in my conversations with my athletes about that, there's a lot of worry and anxiety and fear about doing that because they're worried they're going to be seen as less committed to their sport or less committed to trying to win those minutes or that position because they're somewhere else, quote unquote, like focusing on other things. Like you should be 1,000% focusing on your sport. But you and I both know that when you are given that leeway and that space to do so, you actually play better in your sport when you actually have that opportunity to explore. The anxiety goes down, the confidence goes up, and there's just like, it's just better. But I think people need to hear, and coaches need to hear, parents need to hear that the athlete needs space to do that. And that it doesn't mean you're like cheating or trying to get over or like less committed to your sport. It's like essential to your overall well-being, right? What would you say about that, Oz?
Yeah, and this reminded me of a story.
Okay.
You can take this out if you want. But
No, tell the story. We will not take it out. Tell the story.
So I think it was my senior year, and I went to an audition. There was something about clothing audition for a runway for Serena Williams show. So it was the Serena Williams, and she was taking out a clothing brand, and she wanted models to go, and she was looking for dancers combined with freestylers. Anyway, I went to this audition. I They called me to go back, so I did some freestyle with the basketball and stuff I like. So I really loved it because it was at that time it was the direction I wanted to go in because I wanted to do more sports modeling and
Yes,
freestyle
yes.
basketball and all
Gotcha.
this. So they called me to go back, but I was in my senior year. So basically, you weren't allowed to get paid for anything back then.
Mhm. Back then.
Yeah.
Pre-NIL, right? Pre-NIL. Yes, yes, yes.
Pre-NIL. And they were paying quite well. And I went to my coach and I said, okay, look, I have this opportunity. I'm not playing. I'm on the bench. I have like 2 classes a week and I have a little bit till I graduate. Can I take this job? And he said, no, you would break the rules and everyone needs to be on the same page, like on the team. And I said, I don't think anybody would find out about my, $500 job.
Right.
But anyway, he didn't allow me, but I felt like that was just an example of it would be something that, not because it was paid or anything, but just something that I was like excited about, something that was calling me and something that would have given me confidence maybe to even play a bit better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So just something to do outside of basketball because I felt so stuck in that world. And I was already out of it because I wanted to graduate and I was doing an internship at Madison Square Garden. I just wanted to do other things. And I wasn't allowed to because of the team culture and
Interesting. No, it's a great, great story and important for coaches to hear, for other sports psychology professionals to hear, other clinicians who help with the overall holistic way that athletes are human beings and have other interests and are not like, I don't know, robotic or robots in the way that they play and have to have other things to stimulate their minds and bodies. So that's a great story. Again, to recap, you have to find ways to express your other identities while you're still playing. Number 2, exploration of values. Number 3, passions. And 4, relationships. I love that you said exploration of values and the passions that let us give athletes the space to do that because they're so busy and so committed, especially at different divisions, Division 1 for sure, less so 2 and 3, but still at NAIA. But the message is already powerful. Like, hey, we want to encourage you to take a class a week on this to just explore what you're vibing, what you might like be passionate for. Like just the message of that is already huge. How athletes do it, if they do it, what they do with it is a whole nother level as well. So I love the integration into the team culture, that would be something that would be encouraged and supported. And then of course, relationships, like you said, like my daughter, she's gonna be a collegiate athlete next fall. She plays softball. And she's very adamant that she doesn't want to live or room with any other softball players. For this reason, because she's like, I'm spending time with those folks 24/7, maybe, right?
Exactly.
Not exactly 24/7, but like, I have other identities. I have other interests besides softball, and I want to be around other minds and other thinkers. And and I want to like experience that. So she's already kind of thinking about this, which I'm super happy for that. Like, I want to
Awesome.
have relationships outside of sports, outside of my sport. So all of that is like so valuable. I want to read your research actually no later. That's me nerding out
Sure.
later. But anyway, with all of that said, I know that you, with the True Athlete Project, integrate programs that focus on mindfulness, playful movement, and creativity. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your favorite mindfulness techniques that you use with your athletes that you find super valuable in teaching it? Like for yourself, the passion comes out for you, and then you see the athletes like really like leaning into it and finding value and like wanting to learn more and actually practice more.
Hmm. Well, I take more the part of mindfulness through movement.
Okay.
So what I do in the TAP workshops, I use movement as a tool for connection, for awareness, for understanding your body from a different way, from connecting with another person. So I think that's another a way of using mindfulness. Of
For
course,
sure.
for myself, I mean, I use meditation every day, just like 20 minutes in the morning, and also, well, you will talk to Sam, and he's just great at running meditations. And this summer, when we were in Chattanooga and we did this holistic training camp, he was running just body scans and diaphragmatic breathing, and
Love it.
he takes that part because he just has a better voice and he's so good at it. And
Awesome.
I take
Awesome.
more the movement part.
Awesome. 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 Yes, I will be talking to Sam and we'll be diving into all that later. But tell me more. Like, I'm curious, like what would be an example of like a drill or a session that you run with the mindfulness and the movement together? How would that look?
So something I use are Jenga blocks.
Mm,
So, for example, we have one Jenga block,
yep.
and we need to hold the Jenga block between our fingers. So you have a
Yes.
finger up and have a finger up, and we have the Jenga block in between. So there is a
Okay.
lot of like listening, and you have to really tune in to your sensations and to the moment and to your partner to hold that Jenga block without falling. And then
Mm,
we don't just hold it, we move in space. So then if I push, you need to follow. If you push, I need to follow. So it's a lot of basically awareness and attunement to the present moment.
that is so cool. I love that. Another use for those Jenga blocks, but like there's so many implications for all of that. And so that sounds like that could be really, really powerful. I know too that you do a lot of creativity in the way that you coach. Could you, just like with the Jenga blocks, share a technique or an approach for creativity in coaching?
Where I use creativity through play and through the ecological dynamics framework. So person, how they interact with the environment and using different constraints within this environment. So in creativity, it comes out when we are playful, when we are present, and when we feel authentic. That's what
Mm,
I feel about creativity. At least for me, that's how it works.
mhm.
And in coaching, if you allow the players to have these spaces for exploration, have spaces for reflection, for being more authentic, for connecting with each other, I think this creativity arises. So it's allowing freedom, but freedom with constraints. And within these constraints, you find more freedom and you find more creative ways of being and of playing. Yeah. So inside of our membership, we have workshops from with different speakers and facilitators from other fields to bring
Mhm.
in and see how we can take this into sports. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I think your mission, what TAP stands for, your role in it is all really powerful, especially now with so many distractions from play, the sort of
Yeah.
privatization of youth sports, social media, NIL, which we kind of touched on and mentioned earlier. Like, there's so many other things that are taking precedent or could take precedent over the athlete experience at the youth level, collegiate level, that we need to be brought back to this and be reminded. And I'm a believer that they can all coexist together in balance. But like, what would it be like to have a mindful, playful approach to the NIL process? Like, what would it be like to have a mindful, playful, creative approach to how you use social media to grow and learn? Like, I think it's so interesting, and that I think TAP is doing some amazing things that is just going to trickle out into other spaces. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and I see, like, every time I'm on social media, somehow my feed still thinks I'm a basketball player. My Instagram, how do you call it, algorithm,
Yeah.
because it just shows me like reels from Steph Curry and NBA and Kevin Card. Like, it just keeps
Yep.
coming up, and I don't even watch these things anymore.
That's so funny.
But it's still, I'm amazed how still it's just so focused on sports, on what they do inside the sport. But I want to see, okay, what is Caitlin Carr doing to improve the life of others, and of how is she taking sport to another level? It's like it's
Mm,
fashion, it's sport, it's like the culture of basketball. But I don't see more. I don't see social responsibility. Like, yeah, many things. This is just a social media thing that I have these days that I'm trying to understand, because I'm also running the social media app and trying to
okay.
understand how to make better reels and put into video what we do, which is very hard. And I'm trying to get inspiration, but yeah,
Yes. No, but it comes full circle to like, who, pardon me, who are these players besides who they are on the court in this case?
Yeah.
It comes back to that. Like, have they explored their values and their purpose, and how does that come out in the public view? Because again, then it sort of perpetuates that, yeah, they are just players, and that's all that we see, and that they're about the X's and O's and about the outcome and winning and this and that and money and blah, blah, blah. So like, it comes back to what you're saying. What do they stand for? What are their values? How do they show up to that and show the younger generation that that is also part of, in my opinion, the human responsibility to have a platform like some of these high influential athletes have, to like make sure that we're also showing that side of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
said it. You said it
Yeah.
much better.
No, I'm just summarizing what you just said. So the last question in our time together: what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you were a younger version of yourself playing basketball at the collegiate and professional levels?
Well, there are a few things. First thing that comes to mind, that I wish I knew more about myself and my story and my childhood and where I come from
Mm, mm,
and what affects me. And then that, because of this story and because of my past, that is why I'm pushing myself. That is why I have these type of goals. So to
mm,
understand why do I want to play professionally? Why do I want to practice 4 hours a day? To understand that I think would have been very important and made me kind of rethink of what I want in life and where I want to take sport. And probably, instead of practicing so many hours a day, I would have played a bit more just for fun, and
mm.
enjoyed my life a bit more and had more friends. I don't know. Yeah.
Oz, that's huge. And I know that, in our field of sports psychology, that's a big part of the work with sports psychology professionals like CMPCs like myself, sports psychology professionals like you, that that is a bedrock of the process of engaging with a sports psychology professional, to know your why,
Mhm.
to understand where you come from, to understand your story and to connect with it, and to understand and live like, what is your purpose? Like, coming back to that, your reason. And so I think that's really important. And again, in this rush, quick culture of sports, it can be that way. People don't take the time or see the value in that. And I think you and I are here both to say that that's important. and that it helps with the overall well-being and mental health and mental fitness of the human being behind the ball on the court, in your case with basketball. But I can't appreciate enough our time together. I love what True Athlete Project is doing. I'm excited for this series. We got 2 more guests on deck. But thank you for taking the time and for being in Barcelona now, probably closer to 7 p.m. and taking the time after your work day to talk to me. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And thank you for hosting us and the series. And yeah, I hope to see you live someday.
This podcast exists because of the team at CAS-CM. CAS-CM is a B2B content production company helping organizations create and share their stories. We aim to create space where businesses can build assets and drive revenue through writing and talking. Content creation should be enjoyable and accessible. At CAS-CM, we love helping make that happen. Learn more at cascm.com.